This is the New Flyer D40 LFR, and it's the last true New Flyer diesel in TransLink's fleet. This may sound rather insignificant to most, but the retirement of these buses do mark the end of an era for decent, reliable New Flyer products. The D40 LFR is heavily based off the new floor platform first introduced in 1989. To absolute immense success. The LFR line of buses were introduced in 2005. These buses featured a restyled front end as well as a restyled rear. TransLink was one of the first agencies to order these buses in 2006. But the process wasn't all smooth sailing though. Originally, TransLink planned to order 95 C40 LFRs back in 2005. But late on in the process, TransLink decided to cancel the order. Unfortunately for TransLink, this decision came too late, as vehicles were already being produced and prepared for delivery. So the order was revised from 95 C40 LFRs and 45 D40 LFRs to around 40 C40 LFRs and 57 D40 LFRs. Their initial entry into service in Burnaby also presented another problem. The bike racks installed on the buses would cause a visibility issue with the headlights, meaning the buses couldn't run on early morning or late night trips. Eventually, a new bike rack design was installed on the buses to fix this problem, but the order conflicts and initial issues turned TransLink away from future New Flyer orders until 2014. The D40 LFRs, numbered 7447 to 7499, as well as 7501 to 7504, first started service in Burnaby in 2006. But their stint didn't necessarily last long, as they were replaced by the Gen 2 Nova buses, or the L drives, and were demoted to Surrey. The buses come equipped with a 280 horsepower Cummins ISL engine, Allison World B400R6 6-speed transmission, Lumiere Horizon displays, and 36 seats, for a maximum capacity of around 75 people. The D40 LFRs and their sister buses in the C40 LFRs, D60 LFRs and DE60 LFRs, and the trackless trolley buses were the only buses to come with synthetic seats, which quickly became unpopular for how difficult they were to clean. Future bus orders moving forward would have their seats made with materials that are much more easier to clean. Now, why TransLink would order buses with these seats is an interesting decision, especially considering that this is Vancouver we're talking about here. One of the last places that these seats can stay clean for any period of time. 10 years after the D40 LFR's introduction, TransLink would order the XD40, New Flyer's Excelsior diesel variant. These vehicles would hold the distinction of being the last New Flyer diesels ever built for TransLink. But the XD40 and D40 LFR are not even in the same league as each other. The XD40 may be efficient, the D40 LFR is a true New Flyer product. These buses not only looked athletic, they acted like it too. The powertrains in the naturally aspirated LFRs are absolutely brilliant. As the channel name suggests, it's based in the Surrey-Langley area, where the LFRs have spent most of their entire service lives, so I've personally ridden these things about 100 times now. Or maybe it could be more or less than that, I lost count at this point. And the sound these buses make just never ever gets old. The vehicles are also remarkably smooth. They don't jerk at all in acceleration, and the suspension is pretty well balanced, allowing for an almost butter smooth ride throughout. These buses are also fantastic operationally, as they have the patented and trademarked low floor platform reliability. The XD40 does not have this luxury. The XD40 does have fuel efficiency and range as its top marks, but is worse everywhere else. The powertrain combinations range from being boring to imitating a Nissan product, and its reliability has a lot to be desired. Just going on a tangent for a second, there was one time at Surrey Central recently where a 509 trip was supposed to be ran by an XD40, and it was just casually chilling at the other side of the bus exchange. But unbeknownst to myself and the other passengers, the bus actually suffered a mechanical issue. Typical Excelsior, am I right? So it just sat there, while the 509 trip was cancelled and replaced by a Nova CNG. They're better than the XN40s, I'll give them that, but the reliability is still absolute garbage. With the other low-floor platform buses in TransLink's fleet long retired, except for the DE60 LFR, whose time will come, the D40 LFR is the last true good 40-foot New Flyer product in TransLink's fleet. And once it retires for good, there is a noticeable gap downwards to the XD40 and XN40, which are worse than the LFR in nearly every way. If you enjoyed this video and want to see a rant on the XN40, make sure you give this video a like. I have a lot to say on those buses, that's for sure. Now comparing it to its other competition in the Nova L drives. Their stats are pretty similar, but the T drive design in the LFRs and the L drive designs in the Novas do present a few advantages and disadvantages. The biggest elephant in the room being the seating layout. The D40s focus more on standing capacity than seating capacity, allowing for the space inside them to be used to the maximum on their routes across Surrey. The L drives, as their name suggests, have the left rear side completely cut off by engine components. The design basically limits it from having any kind of standee space, or at least any significant standee space, so is instead designed for extra seating capacity. This allows for a slightly more comfortable experience on most trips, but an absolutely unbearable nightmare on select routes, specifically the 130 and 222, which push these buses to the absolute limit. The LFRs would be the more versatile and better all-round option for routes like the 222 and 130, but because TransLink was not very happy with the issues surrounding the LFR orders, they went with Nova instead, which would lead to the revolution of Nova Bus LFSs that we have today. In recent years, however, withdrawal has started on the D40 LFR fleet, with them gradually being demoted into training service or just retired altogether. Back in March 2025 though, 3 of the healthiest D40 LFRs were moved to Port Moody for a short time, to complement the retiring C40 LFRs and dominant fleet of XN40s. POCO operators and passengers, I am so sorry. But in December of 2025, however, the 3 buses were moved back to go through their retirement cycle. There are currently 13 D40 LFRs listed in service, with around 9 active and 4 serving as training units. But these buses don't really have a lot of time left in service. A new order of Nova Bus LFS-Es will likely cause a few Nova CNGs or even a few hybrids to move over to Surrey, which are currently the dominant bus over there. There is also an additional order of Nova CNGs that will likely move over to Surrey as well. Either one or both of these will cause the retirement of the last few D40 LFRs, after barely 20 years in active service. I remember watching and riding these buses when they were relatively new, and they were an absolute blast to say the least. Their athletic appearance, powerful engines, smooth running, and bulletproof reliability, for the most part, is something that should be appreciated by most passengers, especially if the massive hole that the XN40 will probably not fill. If they're still around when you're watching this video, now is the time to truly appreciate the last New Flyer diesels. But if they're retired by the time you're watching this, you can appreciate their greatness by watching these videos.